Alright, I'm going to attempt to explain what I've figured out so far here, at least in the belt situation. To begin with, before I took it apart, I had a tensioner sitting right down in here, and you had the serpentine belt, which run over the balancer, over the idler, over the alternator, which is kind of a custom spot. Can't really be moved anywhere. It can't be moved forward at all. It's about a ½ inch from the body as it is. Chassis. Now, and then up over the water pump, and then there was a tensioner that Factory 5 had supplied, which bolted up here. It worked pretty good. Worked pretty good for me. So we pull that off of there. There's different widths of this water pump. This one I used because of where the outlet is, and for the heater, I believe. There is one that sits in closer, but I think it's a little bit different over here. So this water pump, I think, is the one to use and to be stuck with. First of all, let's see the bracket itself. It doesn't quite fit because of the water pump down here, the corner of this thing. It's got little standoffs that bolt in here to that stud, and then bolt in through here. One over here, one over here. And then it loops in around this snout real nicely. So rather than try to change the water pump, and go to like an electric water pump and have to replumb everything, I think I'm just going to shave the bottom of this thing off and then re-weld it to keep that corner strong for this tensioner, and make it to where it accommodates this water pump. All it needs to do is move down just a little bit and it's good. I'll just have to shave off a little bit of this corner and I'll be fine. And I'm not going to lose much of my adjustment, because when the belt comes around over this tensioner, yeah, it's going to go around here and then here. Anyways, we're good. We got the room that we want and the room we need. Yep, and then this comes around this way. Anyways, so I'm going to have to redo that, swing that in a bit, re-weld that. We'll be good there. The distance away from the motor is dictated by this snout. This blower isn't made for this car. It's not made, it didn't come as a kit. They just sold this thing to me and I got to make it fit. So I got no options as far as the depth. And he said that it's set up for a Camaro balancer. This balancer that's on there is a Corvette balancer. The Corvette balancer is the one that's closest to the motor. If you measure it, evidently it's like 4 inches away. The Camaro is another 1 inch away, so it's 1 inch more out. And then there's another one, which is the truck balancer, and that's 5.5 inches out. The blower being set up for the Camaro is an inch out further. So I'd have to change this balancer, no problem. Now that would mean that the serpentine belt would come out, which would mean that the alternator would have to come out. And you can't. It's not going to fit. So what I'm going to do, I found out that there's another option for a balancer, which is on the newer Camaro, Corvette, Cadillac motors that come with the superchargers on them, the LSA. And that balancer has a third groove, which is just right outside this first one, so it mimics and matches the dimensions of the Corvette balancer. And then it just has another pulley, one groove out, one just, you know. So anyway, I think it's going to work. I'm going to get that LSA balancer. I'm going to run this inside groove for the alternator only. This is a tensioner for a timing belt on a Volkswagen, and that's going to fit right there, and then that's going to tension that short belt, which is going to run the alternator. The balancer will run the same belt for the AC, so that won't change. And then I'm going to run the serpentine belt off the LSA balancer, the third one out, which is going to ride out further on this water pump. So this water pump is actually going to help me because it'll accept that next groove out. Which all in all is going to line up, I believe, with everything up here. I think it's going to match up pretty good. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Like I say, there's a lot going on there. And then I am going to have to build a plate right here, which is going to have an idler for the blower belt, because when this comes around, hits this one, this has to come down to the balancer, but it's going to hit this, so I got to bring it out with an idler, which will sit right there like this, and it'll bring it out away from this water pump, and then you can get it down to the balancer. And I got room down here to run all that wider balancer, so that's not a problem. So I don't know, I think I'm going to get away with it. I think it's going to work. I'm going to order that balancer and shave this off, make a block, and we're going to go for it. I think that's going to hook up my belts, and then I can start working on something else. Well, I think I got the belt situation. It's going to work. Not sure if I showed this thing. I kind of cut that corner out of there, so that'll come up into place. Put these standoffs in there, and it's going to line up and fit, of course. And once I get the motor out of there, I have to cut these probably a ½ inch or so to get that to set in the distance that I want. And then this pulley will stay where it is. They sent me an adapter spacer, which comes out another inch or so, but I won't be using that. At least an inch. And then of course I have the water that's going to hook up here, in and out. And that shouldn't be that big of a deal, but I'm going to run, I believe, an intercooler, or heat exchanger, I should say, on each side, right in here, where my air filters used to sit. So I'll run lengthwise, kind of like this big board right here. A couple of intercoolers with fans, I believe. And I'll seal the other side of it so it has to draw the cold air from outside. And then it will exit into the engine bay, or out this bottom here. And so then that'll take care, so I'll have to do the plumbing. So I'll be in, I have to go out of one side down to one of the intercoolers, and then out, go across to the other side, in, and then out, and then back into here. And I think between all those lines and both the heat exchangers, I'm not going to run a reservoir. Doesn't really matter when you're street driving it, because it gets heat soaked and it stays a certain temperature anyway. A little different than drag racing, I guess, where you would do a quarter mile at a time and fill up a reservoir with ice. But when you're out driving, eventually that ice melts and it just gets the temp that it wants to be. So got to find a couple of heat exchangers, and I got to do some plumbing. I got to redo my fuel system, in and out, going to a Y, splitting from a Y, going to each injector, and then from each injector back into the tanks. So I got to redo the fuel system. I got to wire up different manifold air pressure, the MAP sensor, and then a air temperature sensor. And then I got to run a boost gauge. So a little bit of work there, getting that stuff wired up and set up. And all that stuff should be pretty easy. You just got to do it. Not too much fabrication. The next big fabrication thing is the intake. It's a 95 millimeter, I think, throttle body. And this will be switched out for 103 millimeter. And I got to plan where I want my cool air to come from. So I've been running a couple different thoughts. One is to stuff it into here, not down into the spot that it used to be, but kind of right where it's sitting here. Which would mean I'd have to come out of here, split it out quite an angle, back to there, and then almost a 90 into where it is. I would probably do each side. And I'd probably seal this off. So it's sucking that cool air from that side of the fence here compared to this side. And then I would also consider at that point getting rid of these windows and replacing it with a guy makes a duct that breathes in from right here, but I think the window goes away. But I kind of need a spot to get cool air from, so I may get ducting from each side there. So a little bit of fabrication and figuring out the pipes for the intake. And there's got to be a certain run for the MAF sensor to work. I think there's barely enough run to bring that out there. And then have it split from each side. Then the other option is to make some kind of duct, get rid of the back window altogether, make some kind of a duct back here with fins, you know, like on a Lamborghini. And I may have to do that anyway. If my intake doesn't fit, because it is, this intake barely fits underneath there, let alone, you know, getting an angle for the air intake. So kind of want to get this air intake situated before I pull the motor out. I think I'm going to get the transmission out of here first and get that sent out, get it sent off to Mendiola. I don't need that in here for anything. So maybe I'll stop and pull that out and then get my intake mocked up. And then I want to get the interior kind of situated. So to start off, I'm going to take this piece here and cut this out right here, and then just put it in and see if this thing fits. If it does, I'll kind of build off of that angle here. See if that fits right here. And then I'll kind of build off that angle. I don't know if I'm going to have a window here and then an angle. A couple windows so you can see in there. I'm not sure what it's going to look like at the moment, but I kind of need to get that figured out. I better stop and show what's going on. You can see I got that rear firewall cut, if that's what you want to call it. And the cover cut, the waterfall cover. Probably going to just use plexiglass, make some kind of window here. And I'm going to finish, I'm going to get some wire or something and form cover over that. And then probably fiberglass over the top of it. I'm thinking. We'll see. And I don't know if I'll have some kind of see-through right here or not. I'll make that decision in a minute. Well, here's the next little part. Kind of getting a cage formed around the situation. Kind of got an idea of where I may want two little windows back here. Well, I think I'm ready to go. It's going to be a mess. Hope it's not too big of a mess. It's ready. And I got some glass on there. And messy as always. Messy as always. But it is on there. Let's see, I got a light right here. So I'm going to weld some aluminum in right here and make that rounded off both sides. And I'll have to get my paint out that I used for the hydro dip. I think I got some film left. Whoa. Messy. Messy, messy, messy. It's just a couple of layers deep there. See that black thing right there? That's my thumb from my glove. Yeah, that's gonna work. There it is. I'm gonna grind it down, see what it looks like. I may soften up this corner a little bit. Other than that, there's not much I can do about it. It has to be that big. I hate grinding fiberglass. I'm gonna wrap that with gold on the inside of that thing. Make it look shiny and pretty inside there. And it keeps the heat shield. Oh, there's what it looks like after I ground on it a bit. I think the light makes the video look yucky. Anyway, I'm going to go in there and touch up a couple spots that are thin. I started the process of getting the transaxle out of here. So far I got the axles and the exhaust. Figured I might as well get that out of there and get it shipped off, because there's going to be downtime waiting for that thing, I'm sure. Waiting for the new one. Who knows? Anyways, might as well get it out of here. And this thing turned out pretty good, except I don't like the shape. So I think I'm going to cut that off and kind of redo the shape. And try to do more of a form-fitting type situation. And then I'm still trying to figure out what to do with the harness, because I got to cut that bar. It doesn't go across there anymore, so I'm probably gonna have to cut the bar in half and brace it. Brace the one end from the back off of here and up top, and like triangle it. And I think that should work. Got a new throttle body coming, 103mm throttle body. So I can start the venture of the intake tubing. Can't really find a shape for an intercooler or a heat exchanger that fits in here good enough without really changing a bunch of crap. So anyways, I think I'm going to go back here. There's a lot of room back here. Both sides. I can put a nice heat exchanger on both sides. And probably even a trans oil cooler down in there for my new sequential shift. Got a new part. A really awesome throttle body. 103. I think this old one's 95. And so we get more air into that big old blower. The connector is different. This one has a connector like that. The new one has a connector like that. So anyway, shoot. But I figured out that I can swap over this 6 wire to that 6 wire. I just have to get the right adapter for this one and cut it apart and do it. And then when I put that bigger throttle body up here the other way, this hits the window when I shut it. So flip it over 180. And then what happens is there's the actuator for the diverter, which bolts on right there. So I had to take this little actuator off. I'm gonna have to figure out a new way to make that work, which means just puts that in a different spot somewhere. Anyway, one of the problems. So everything will work, but you always got to do a little bit to make it work. Yeah. But it is going to work. So far, so good. And I got a lot of clearance right here to bring off an adapter and do a split or something right there. Cut the transaxle out. Comes out pretty easy. Got to unhook everything, and it's pretty light. So to support it with the jacks, support the back of the motor with the straps here. Disconnect it and then bend over and by hand, you know, walk it out of there with my hands and the jacks. Comes out pretty easy. So So that's the SDR5, I think they call it. Mendiola's 5-speed. And that's the one I'm sending to them. Let them go through it, make sure everything is brand new and good. Alright, I'm going to redo this thing. Do a little better job of mapping it out to begin with where I want it. A little more of a symmetrical shape, rounded off shape. And I put this cardboard around here to give me distance around the wheel, distance around this edge over here. Same thing here. I'm going to cut apart what I've done, except this front face, which is still going to be good. And then I'll redo this other part here. And I don't know if I'm going to match this shape and follow that shape there. Kind of a form-fitting situation, or if I want to be symmetrical. I don't know, we'll see. But this looks better already. So here's version 2. A little more form-fitting of what the blower is. Go with the flow. It was kind of hard making that shape. Anyway, a little more thought put into it, a little more time put into it. Hopefully it looks better. Okay, this got done. Should be pretty good. Let that get hardened up and yank it out of there. There it is, good enough. Hard as a rock. I'll grind that off and put some Bondo on there. Pretty it up. That's a little more form-fitting. Fits around the sprockets, the pulleys I should say.